Welcome to the Bookish Ballerina Podcast, where we discuss ballet, art, stories, music, science, economics, and everything in between. I'm your host, Eleanor Stewart, and I am a rather bookish ballerina.
Today, my guest is Alan Harrison, author of Scene Change and Scene Change 2, books where he explains his concerns with nonprofit arts organizations and their frequent disregard for impact. We delve into the importance of impact for nonprofit arts organizations because they are nonprofits, and briefly explore the history of why arts organizations are allowed to be nonprofits under the 501c3 tax code. We chat about all of the implications of this, and we also briefly explore his time on the game show Jeopardy. I hope you enjoy. All right. Hello and welcome to the Bookish Ballerina Podcast. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Very thrilled to have you on. So my first question is, what is your story? What is your background?
Oh, me? Me, little old me. I was in the arts management business for about 30 years. Actually, let me rephrase that. I was in the nonprofit arts industry for about 30 years, 15 years as a marketing director, another 15 running organizations. And then actually after that, another 10 consulting. Over the last 10 years, while at the end of my consulting and at the beginning of beginning my writing bit, I started putting together some thoughts and created a series of articles that are now on Arts Journal every week. Although at this very moment, as we speak, I'm taking some time off to enjoy the summer. But I write weekly. I write about arts organizations. And it came to me while I was consulting that we were facing the same challenges in the industry that we were facing when I started in the industry. Exactly the same challenges. The graying of the audience, the lessening of the subscription base, the lessening of the, the donation base. Donations were coming in lower and lower. And over the last 15 years, there's been a steady drop in donations to the arts from all sectors. So the issue is if you're suddenly becoming unpopular, or in this case, not so suddenly becoming unpopular, why is that? And what can you do about it? And then I reread, don't know what possessed me to do it, but I reread Section 501c3 of the IRS code.
Yes.
Have you read that?
I have, yes. It's very brief.
Okay. So it's really easy. It's like 4 or 5 sentences. That's about it, right?
Yes.
The exempt activities in the IRS code do not include the arts. The arts are not considered to be a tax-exempt activity by the IRS. In 1980, there was a court case, as it turned out, Plumstead. You can look it up for yourself. That was the company, Plumstead Theater Society, I believe.
Interesting.
Essentially against the IRS. And they said, no, we're a nonprofit because we do things differently from the commercial version of what we do. And we think of the community first, et cetera, et cetera. So the judge ruled in a questionable ruling, to be honest, that nonprofit arts organizations could in fact become nonprofit arts organizations. They wouldn't have their status taken away from them. And they only have to produce the arts. That by itself was considered okay. Again, a court case and never rewritten into the books. And that 501c3 has been around for 70 years. So ample opportunities to rewrite that. And they chose not to. Now, the reason they chose not to in the first place to include the arts, this is all tangential, but, you know, I was on Jeopardy twice. So I have all sorts of trivia bits going on. The reason that they was because of the movie studios. Because if the movie studios could claim, hey, all we do is produce art, then they, in fact, could be qualify as nonprofits just by virtue of producing a movie. Even a commercial $200 million blockbuster could be considered nonprofit, and all the tax advantages that go with that.
Right.
So they wanted to exclude the arts for that reason, among others. The other thing that these days they would exclude it because of Disney, which is ostensibly one of the most charitable organizations in the world and happens to do art for a living. So that's why it's not in there. Anyway, it could be argued that they do more charitable work per dollar, per revenue dollar than any of the nonprofit arts organizations currently in the U.S. So you put all that together, and what do you have? You have a case where the arts institutions and organizations, the largest ones especially, this doesn't really apply to those who have a specific case to be made in their own communities, but the larger ones have abdicated their charitable activities completely. And they're not really any different from what a commercial, a Broadway, or a commercial for-profit arts organization is doing. There's really no difference anymore. And as such, when they go into the community and ask for donations because, hey, we're a nonprofit, the people who are giving donations, these are the same people over the last 30 years who stopped giving to United funds like United Way and United Arts Funds. Not stopped entirely because it's still easy in the workplace to do that, but mostly people don't donate to a general fund anymore with the trust that it's going to the place that they want it to go. Now they donate to the organization itself. Well, given that, they look at the organizations that they want to support, and they want to support organizations that help their community.
Yes.
So the charitable arts sector, all of these large organizations became competitive as opposed to collegial with food banks and homeless shelters and all the other schools, universities, all the other nonprofits that do have tax-exempt activities and can prove it and can show metrics and can show reasonable data and fantastic stories to go along with it. All the arts had really were the stories. So we have a problem. Yeah. If you're not going to act like a charity, you probably don't deserve a donation. So who gives to an organization like that doesn't actually offer any charity whatsoever? Well, as it turned out, it's only, in many cases, the largest donors. They're not all toxic, but many are. More so than the $20 donors, that's for sure. And so you end up with donors donating so that they themselves can attend. And when your donor becomes your beneficiary, then you got real elitism problems. And that's what's killing the arts sector more than anything else, is elitism, toxicity, and lack of metrics.
I see. Do you know the judge's thought process in that initial ruling?
Yeah, you can look it up. In fact, I don't want to go through it now because it's pretty, pedantic. But yeah, go through the judges. Go look it up. Plumstead Theater Society, pretty easy to find. You can find the whole court case. I've written about it in Arts Journal. You can find whatever. I've quoted it a few times with a link. Okay. Basically, it said that nonprofit arts organizations care more about the community, have limited runs, run in small venues. When I say care about the community, they have training services. Now, in dance, there are a lot of training services, but in the other disciplines, not really so much among the largest organizations. All these things that, there was a time when most of that was true, but probably even when the ruling happened in 1980, none of that was, purely true. And they were just trying to find a reason to continue to donate and get tax deductions for their donations
I see.
by giving to a group that doesn't really care about the community.
I see.
So you have a populist movement happens, COVID happens, a populist movement happens and I hate to use the word populist because it's not really populist. It's populist like Germany in the 30s was populist. You have a sort of a cult of power going on where they have bashed not intellectual pursuits, because I don't think it's just that, but they think the arts are a luxury because look who goes. If it's Mama and Papa Got Rocks, who are the only ones who are going, then, well, I'm not part of that group. And I don't want to support Mama and Papa Got Rocks. I want to support people around me. I want to support me. Mm-hmm. So unless you can prove, and really prove, by data and stories, both, not one or the other, that you are absolutely an asset to your community, and here's why, not just by what you as an arts organization do, but what the outcomes were. You can't do it from your point of view. It has to be from the point of view of the community. If you can do that, you're gold. If you can't do that, you probably aren't going to make it through these next few years.
So what is your proposal for organizations that might not fit that criteria, that might not be giving back to the community in ways that would warrant a 501c3 status?
Do it. Help your community. Go back to, go look. I mean, it's simple. It's a simple answer, but it's complex because it requires you to have all sorts of different ideas on why you exist as a 501c3. There are two ways to go about this. One, of course, is to actually become the charity that you were intended to be, that the community asked you to be, which is a charity that provides services and uses art as a tool and not as a product, a tool to make, something bad go away or something good happen and then measure that good. So it's not just, people are happier. Okay, they probably are, but that doesn't help your community per se. That doesn't prove any of the metrics that the charitable exemption has asked us to prove as arts organizations, as nonprofit organizations. The other way you can go is just go ahead and be a for-profit company, which is people find that an astonishing idea. I don't know why every other business in the United States is for-profit. Doesn't mean they make a profit, but it means they are not a nonprofit. And get investors instead of donors, pay them back, put out prospectuses, get rid of your development department and turn them into partnerships where people can, donate. Again, they're not donating, they're investing in your company to see what they can get on it as a return.
Right.
If you make it clear, like the movie The Producers, that they're not going to get a return because every Broadway show is sort of produced like The Producers, which I recommend everybody see, the first one with Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder.
Okay.
Because it's the best. It's the best. It's the best lesson on Broadway production and commercial production. But if you can do that, and then you don't have to pay anybody back because you'll just say that you lose money, but hey, you can get front row tickets. That kind of thing can happen. But so either go commercial and then you can do whatever you want, or go full nonprofit and stop talking about things like artistic visions, which is not a nonprofit metric, or butts and seats, which is not a nonprofit metric, or positive economic impact, again, not a nonprofit metric. Or even in many cases, using national data to prove local worth, like saying the test scores go up for music students nationally. Well, you can't then say test scores go up if that's true. And I wouldn't hesitate to say that's probably true. You can't extrapolate on that and say that your organization, therefore, deserves funding because your organization provides a place where your students get higher test scores. unless you prove that.
Right.
So you got to get rid of all of those old metrics. We're at a real inflection point. The whole thing, well, we've been at this inflection point for a while. We're now at the end of it. And what we're seeing is that organizations who don't get it should probably go away and stop hoovering out all the money that should be going to these great organizations like, I don't know, Louisville Orchestra is a good example. They recently got $8 million to tour the state from a very red state's government, not out of any arts funding, but out of the idea that they were charged to help unite the urban and rural divide that exists in the state of Kentucky. And so what did they do? They went to every county, seemingly every small town in every county and large city as well, played in high school gyms and public libraries and, all of any venue that they could put together something free of charge to anyone who was attending. They taught classes in the high schools that they were in. They did shows for the under 5-year-old set in church basements. When they did it, they didn't just produce music that was European by some guy whose last name began with B. They might include one of those.
Yes.
But mostly it's music that speaks to the people of Kentucky. So they will do classical stuff for sure, but then they'll also bring on a bluegrass band or a jazz band, a Kentucky-based musical organization that will then play with the orchestra. So you have a combination of sounds that was really awe-inspiring. Yeah. And then on top of that, so the people in the audience, you had to see this high school gym I went to. They're standing and they're dancing in the aisles and they're, doing clog dancing because they know how. And they're people who just come out of the field, black, white, all, every other color. And they're having a ball, not your typical golf clap, classical theater audience.
Right.
Nothing wrong with this per se, but even the members of the orchestra were getting a lot more out of it than that. Then what they showed was that the students that they were teaching actually did start to go to college at a higher rate, actually did start to achieve at a higher rate, and because they kept touch with all of them and they had all of their stories. So
interesting.
Bless the Louisville Orchestra. They're fantastic.
Yes.
If anybody deserves, a couple bucks, it's them. Out of Hand Theater, similar idea. It's an organization that was flailing for a while, but then found a way to use theater as a way to not just talk about social justice issues, but do something about them. So when they do their shows in people's homes, in found places outside, again, all free, but they ask people to make a commitment to their communities by writing letters to Congress people, by, making donations to outside organizations, by learning what it is getting vaccines. They even had an equitable vaccine program until the current administration cut CDC money. So that CDC money, which was paying for it, got cut. So they had to cut that out. But these are people who are actually saving lives by doing art, and they can prove it, and they have the stories and the data to go along with it, which is why they went from being a $200,000 company in a matter of a couple of years to a $2 million company. Now they're the second largest theater company in Atlanta. There are several others. Several others who are doing the right thing and deserve the Mixed Blood Theater in Minneapolis. Forklift Dance Works. Oh, they're fantastic in Austin. There's a dance company that uses people, regular people, and uses the sort of Studs Terkel method of finding out what people's lives are really like, and then creates dance with a combination of these regular people and some dancers, and they create huge spectacle performances in Austin for the people of Austin. And they celebrate what these overlooked people, overlooked jobs, underserved people do every day. And it's a marvel. they deserve a few bucks. Does the largest ballet company in your city deserve a few bucks? Maybe.
The largest ballet company where I am is the Tallahassee Ballet, and I actually have a lot of respect for what's being done in that organization. They have a growing outreach program in several schools in Tallahassee. They have several different programs that I greatly appreciate what they're doing in the community.
Are they measuring the results of those things, or are they just doing them?
That I don't know. I'm not super aware.
That's the key.
Yes.
Right. It's the difference between teaching and educating.
Yes.
Technically, a teacher could stand in front of the class of any level that they teach, and they could go through the entire curriculum, for the year in one fell swoop in, say, a matter of a few days. And then they say they're done. And if the students didn't understand or learn or didn't get anything, that's irrelevant to a teacher who works that way, a declaimer, because they say, well, I taught it. If they didn't learn it, that's not my problem. Education requires the education to happen. It has to be, again, from the outside looking in, not from the inside looking out. So it has to be from the point of view of the student, from the community. What did the students gain out of this? How well did they do in other areas? It can't be just, well, we sent a group out to teach them.
Yes.
That's great. But if you don't follow up, and if you don't measure their results, if you don't test them, then you're a lousy educational organization and then don't deserve a donation, don't deserve a nickel.
So, and they may have metrics that I'm not aware of. I'm not as well educated on that front as I should be. But what metrics do you recommend organizations measure? Do you have examples?
Yeah, measure the good it's made for the community. Measure impact squared. That's an excellent way of looking at it. Impact squared, also known as the impact of your impact, is something that is often unintentional. But if you make it intentional, it can work even better. Here's how Impact Squared works. I have a friend who used to be the head of Food Lifeline, which is the largest food bank in Seattle. And I asked her one day off the cuff, I said, what's your $1,000 request? What's your ask for $1,000? And she says, well, for $1,000, I'll tell them that we fed 100,000 separate people last year. Not just 100,000 meals, but 100,000 people. And we have all of their data, and we, saw that they ate. And I said, okay, well, that's $1,000 to me. That would have been more, but that's $1,000 for you. That's $1,000. What's your $10,000 asset? Oh, she said, when I tell them that 40,000 of that 100,000 are no longer on welfare or unemployment or any of those things, they're housed. They used the food bank as it was intended, as a scaffold to get them to back into society. They've got jobs and they're, contributing back to society. That's a $10,000 ask. So, okay, now I get it. That's the impact of your impact. If arts organizations would adopt that process, they could win, but they're not even doing the impact part. Here's the deal. What's the first thing just off the top of your head, what is the thing that board members care about most at a board meeting?
That's an excellent question.
Just, gut answer. What's the thing they ask about first?
Probably increase in number of tickets sold, increase in number of students in the school, increase in quality of productions and education.
I wish that were true. That's not what the first thing board members talk about. They talk about money.
And that I guess
they talk about money.
That can be a metric for increase in number of tickets sold. However, I understand that should not always be the metric used.
So they talk about money, and because in the corporate world, money is the bottom line. That is a bottom line. That's where the phrase comes from. It's the bottom line of the budget. So that's not the case with charities.
Yes.
Money exists only to make it easier and more beneficial to provide impact. You have to provide impact. Impact is the coin of the realm for charities like arts organizations, nonprofit arts organizations. Impact is not money.
Yes.
To wit, I would rather see an organization go into the red by 10%, having achieved real impact, measurable real impact, both data and stories, for 10% more people that they had intended that year, rather than meeting their budget, finishing on time, and not doing any impact at all. There are board members who would look at that and say, no, we need them to break even every year, at least. In fact, we should probably be squirreling away some money. Mm. Well, okay, that's the problem. That's what you do in a for-profit organization, not in a nonprofit. You have to get the impact. Nonprofits were created as experiments in many ways. Can something be done in a community that is not paid for by government, that is not paid for by profit? It requires an extensive amount of work and profit. It's much harder to run a nonprofit than a for-profit. For-profit, you just doing the money. That's it. Nonprofit, very difficult, and I think people take that for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
stop talking about the money and start talking about not how many students did we educate, but how well they did on their test scores. Not how many people came, because that's really not a nonprofit metric. If that were the case, what's your nearest baseball team? I guess the Tampa Bay. Well, it's not really a good since they're in a minor league stadium right now. Let's just use the Atlanta Braves. The Atlanta Braves would be a nonprofit because they draw 3 million people. And in fact, they draw another 30, 40, 50, 100 million people on TV. So they're doing better than you are is kind of the thing if that's your metric for, attendance being a metric. It's not a metric. Money is not a metric. Revenue is not a metric. Even economic impact in your community is not a metric. You want to tell me that your food bank suddenly showed an increase because of your work and you can make that connection. That's a different story because you're helping underserved people. But if you're just, providing money to the world because, $20 on top of your ticket price is going to babysitters and restaurants and parking. Well, every restaurant could say that too. $20 of their revenues are going to babysitters, parking, and maybe that dance concert down the road. So economic impact isn't a metric either. It has to be physical, charitable. Look in the 501c3 exemption list. It's really easy. There are only like 6 things listed.
Yes.
Pick one that really appeals to you. Have the intent that that's what you do for a living, not present art. Once you say you present art for a living, then that's a commercial point of view. If you say we help people for a living and here's how, boom, then you win.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to push back
on you on one thing. It's going to take a lot of change.
My clarification is with the money metric. I think the danger from board members' perspective is that if there's too great of an expense in relation to what's coming in, the future of the organization and the future impact is jeopardized because the organization won't exist anymore. What are your thoughts on that? And then I have another follow-up question as well on how to, I'll get there in a second.
That's okay. So in answer to your question, that's reasonable. That's a reasonable thought. And I'm not suggesting that because so many people will take any argument and argue the extreme. So somebody out there is listening to me and saying, he just wants everybody to run willy-nilly and spend all the money and spend more than they have and go bankrupt in a year. It's not what I'm saying at all.
Mm-hmm.
Business practice is important. And I ran organizations for years that were, on a shoestring, and others that were, quite large. Money is important to get these things done. So you run your business like an excellent business, and an excellent business doesn't spend all its money. And although if it did spend all of its money on impact and then closed, you could say it was a successful year. And things got better in the community. What if you solved something and then went out of business because of that?
That's true. That is true.
So, I'm not suggesting that at all. You need, and in fact, there is a fiduciary responsibility for board members to look at the expenses and make sure, but it's not to look at the expenses to make sure they're making money, which is how they usually capture it. It's looking at the expenses to make sure they're spending it in the right places to get the maximum impact.
Yes. Wonderful. Yes. I love that clarification. Awesome. Okay. My other follow-up question was, if there is a nonprofit organization that has formerly not had a huge impact, but is looking toward changing that, what are your recommendations? And I know it could depend on the organization specifically, but what metrics should they start looking at? What things should they start measuring that they haven't measured in the past, etc.?
Funny you should ask, because I wrote these books.
Yes.
And they are, in fact, one of the reasons we're talking today.
Yes.
I have 2 books out on the market. They both came out last year. I'm going to hold them up. You have to tell me if they show up on camera. There they are.
Yes, they are
see
on
them?
Camera. Yes.
There they are. Scene Change and Scene Change 2. Scene Change lays out the problem. The subtitle is Why Today's Nonprofit Arts Organizations have to stop producing art and start producing impact. And it really gets into the heart and the meat of the issues at hand and what impact really looks like. The second book is specifically, it was ostensibly for board members, but it's really for anybody who's thinking about managing an arts organization, or at least managing a department of an arts organization. It's right now it's being taught in a few college arts administration programs, and that's Scene Change 2, the 5 real responsibilities of nonprofit arts boards. And in that, we spent half the book talking about how the boards are working now and what's not working and how to fix those things. And included in that are discussion prompts and exercises and things that you can do at your own board meetings to make change your organization's point of view from one of strictly revenues, expenses, and debt, to a discussion of what our community really needs. And not just once. You can want the arts, that's lovely. But if you need the arts, it's because the arts are satisfying a problem that currently exists in our city or in our region. So those are the keys. Buy the books, take 2 hours of your life and read them. They're not long and they're not arduous. And I don't know, they have a few stories of my own in there from 30 years of bouncing around. In November, the 3rd and final book in the series, which is called Scene Change 3, because I have no imagination whatsoever, but it's subtitled The Ones Who Get It. And in that, I embedded myself with several arts organizations that do provide impact for their communities. They prove their impact. They show what the impact looks like, and they are successes. And so there are 3 that I go into depth about, and then 4 more that I talk about having contacted. Among them is Forklift Dance Works in Austin, Voices of Our City Choir in San Diego, which is entirely comprised of unhoused people. What else? There's some good groups in there. Mixed Blood Theater in Minneapolis is in there. Arts Capacity. Well, how could I forget them? It's sort of based out of Chicago and Wichita, but what they do is they go to prisons and they teach music to prisoners. And the prisoners have a recidivism rate of 1/6. I think it's 1/6. It might be
Wow.
1/16 of the rest of the criminal community. So
That's incredible.
there is, again, they're showing the impact. They're
Mhm.
taking people who have been thrown away in many cases, which is what we do in our prison system,
Mhm.
and they're making them know that they're worthwhile. It's
Yes.
a wonderful group. Throw your money at all these groups; they're amazing.
I love it.
But read the books. If you're on a board, if you're in with the, I mean, just read the books. They're not expensive. They are available everywhere. If you
And
need
I
to go
can
to
link
the,
them. I would be glad to link them in the description if you would like to send me
great.
the best links. I can definitely do that.
But again, just look for Scene Change, Alan Harrison, and all three books should show up if you go to Amazon. But if you go to your independent bookstore, which is what I
Nice.
prefer, or you go to
Yes,
bookshop.org or something like that, they're all three there as well. So just ask for Scene Change, Alan Harrison. They'll know what to do.
Perfect. So it seems like your recommendation, there isn't really one that would fit for every organization because every community is different. So analyze what is needed in your community and how you can measure your impact against what is needed.
Here's the secret to that. There's a real big secret to that. I mean, because, everything is a secret. The secret to that is, I know this sounds just completely crazy. Ask them.
Yes.
Don't just do your thing because you want to do it. Ask them what they need before you start, if possible. But if you already exist as a company and have a long history of, frankly, doing big things and not really showing any impact in community, stop doing what you're doing and ask them.
Mm-hmm.
They'd be delighted to tell you and to see how you can solve their problems for them.
Yes, absolutely. Wonderful. Okay. I am going to take a turn a little bit. You also speak on politics and how that affects the arts. What are some issues that are being affected by politics right now? I know I had asked you a little bit about what is happening potentially with National Endowment for the Arts. Can you speak into that and maybe some other relevant issues as well?
The first thing I want to say about the current administration is I don't understand why people are shocked and surprised by what's happening because it's what he said he was going to do. He's a lame duck president, despite what he says. And so and there are no consequences. Plus, he got the Supreme Court to say that anything he does is legal by virtue of being the president. So he got elected. His cult was elected with him. And I use that word on purpose, not because I think they're bad people. These majority of Americans who voted voted for him. And if you look at opinion polls now, they're still supporting him. They don't like him, but they're supporting him. So this couldn't have been a shock. The shock was more about the way it was done and how vicious it was, where organizations had their funding that had already been approved cut. I don't think anybody expected that particularly. They thought it would run their course and then that would be that. Mm-hmm. The National Endowment for the Arts might go away. I think the woman who is running it, who is a Trump appointee, is finding a reason to keep the line item open. I think that's her strategy. She knows that she's got to do all of these things, and she's probably for it since she was the appointee of all doing all these cuts. She's not an advocate for the arts. She's an advocate for the government. So when she cuts everything down, I think her goal, though, is ultimately, I could be way off. I mean, this is really a guess just from looking from afar, of just keeping something called the National Endowment for the Arts alive for future generations. it may only have a budget of $1,000. This is what the California Arts Council did several years ago when they ran out of money. They kept $1,000 in the budget just to keep the line item going in the budget, so that it had to be considered in the following budgets. I think that's the case here. But I wouldn't expect any government funding to be coming forthwith. You have to look at what the cult likes. The cult is a big fan of country music, and the country music people are big fans of the cult. And so it's just generalizations.
Yes,
I mean, obviously there are
generalized. Many exceptions.
But it is where they have found a foothold in the culture wars. And so I expect that because of the lack of fight from the people who know better, and if you want to call them people on the left, that's fine. I think they're people in the center. Places like the Kennedy Center will continue to become a Grand Ole Opry East, and it will be non-union theater shows and non-union everything in order to break unions. Mm-hmm. As far as the intellectualization, that process already happened. It takes a long time for a cult to take hold and to become popular. Look at Scientology; it's the same thing. At first people thought, "Oh, they're crazy," and then as it went on, there are now millions of people who are Scientologists, and maybe it's still crazy, but they've got a critical mass of people, so it's going to be impossible to get rid of. I mean, even just to speak on him, L. Ron Hubbard was the one who said, where the real money is if you could make your own religion. So as far as the coming 3.5 years of this administration, and perhaps if the vice president becomes the president after that, continuing on for another 8 years after that, I think the message coming from Washington is don't look for help here. If there were a strong defense for it, it would have already existed. But we are not seeing Actors Equity Association picketing the Kennedy Center box office. We're not seeing, because they're doing non-union shows, we're not seeing people taking to the streets and doing anything to stop, to help the arts. And we are seeing it because people are getting killed in Palestine and people are getting killed in Israel. We are seeing that. And as we speak right now in Los Angeles, there's a massive riot going on.
Yeah.
And that's against immigration policy more than anything else.
Yes.
Because we're seeing people who are here actually legally being deported. And they're being dragged out of their homes like Germany in the 30s. I think what will end up happening personally is that we'll have to go to war at some point. Real war, the kind that actually affects our people. And I don't know if that war is a civil war or if it's an external war. It'd probably be a drummed up war, wag the dog style, to be popular. And Wag the Dog was just based on Grenada. So, I mean, we've done it before. And, but, the cycles say every 90 years or so, we repeat what we do. And 90 years ago, we were in World War II. So, and 90 years before that, we were in the Civil War. 90 years before that, we were in the Revolution. So, American Revolution. I mean, that cycle seems to happen all the time. We're about due. I don't say that with any pleasure. Yeah. I do say that the arts are in trouble if they continue to be arts organizations that just produce art. That isn't going to do it. For those who say, isn't art enough? I say, well, it's enough for the artist. it's enough for art itself. Art is essential. Artists are magical because they can take things and put them together and create art out of it. Arts organizations are neither magical nor essential for art and artists to get done or to get, to work.
Yeah, art is inevitable.
Art is inevitable. I mean, you can close your eyes and rub your eyelids and you have art. Art is, even the least artistic thing you can think of was designed by somebody. So art exists. It is essential in the literal sense of the word. It is inevitable. Mm-hmm. It's going to happen whether you want it to or not. Artists are important because they imbue a region with creativity, and that can bleed into bleed in a good way into other disciplines like the law and science and scientists and research and all of that. And creativity is important for that. But again, arts organizations, really, art and artists existed before them and they'll exist after them. The organizations themselves will die unless they prove worth. Right now, in the main, there are lots of them that are doing the right thing. So I just want to say in the main, and really hurting among the largest organizations, they're not proving worth. And as such, they will lose funding and they will deserve to. And when they close down, as you've already seen with several organizations that have closed, they said, well, you know what? We tried. They didn't try anything. They just tried doing what they were doing 50 years ago. And it reminds me of that old Simpsons episode when Ned Flanders' parents, who have a horrible child named Ned Flanders, who's worse than Bart Simpson back in his day. Ned's parents, who are hippies at beatniks, turn to the psychiatrist and say, well, we tried nothing and we ran out of ideas. That's what's going on. They're trying nothing and they're running out of ideas until it's too late, until they've closed. If nature abhors a vacuumist, I forget who said that, then other organizations will take their place. After all, every show that has ever opened on Broadway has closed, except for the ones that are open right now. So change is inevitable as well. Fight it at your own risk, at your own peril.
Okay. All right. I have another related question. So I also asked you if you'd ever heard of the economist Alan Peacock. Are you familiar with him at all?
Tell me about him.
Okay. He's a very interesting thinker. I have read some of his work. He's passed away. He was a soldier in World War II. He was a composer, but his wife apparently joked that he became an economist because he was not a good enough composer. He's
okay.
He's very interesting, and because he was a musician, he was interested in the economics of the arts, mostly music because that was his field. But he had a belief that nonprofit organizations were a temporary kind of placeholder. That's not the word he used, but placeholder until supply and demand reached a point where arts organizations could be more sustainable without donations. What are your thoughts on any of that?
He went that way.
Yes.
He went that way with it. Because you can go one way or the other. Either you're sustainable without donations or you're sustainable without ticket money. If you're sustainable without donations, what was that?
I just said aha, because I had not looked into the other side of it as much.
Yeah, well, that's the side where the impact is. See, the arts organizations that are sustainable without donations are just trying to be commercial organizations. Supply and demand is a commercial output. It has to do with money, not to do with impact. If you're sustainable without any ticket money, like every other charity is, by the way, mostly, propped up by donations, not by services. I mean, there are some that do a lot of services. I shouldn't just say it that way because it's not a black and white issue. But still, no. Let's say you aimed to be an organization that existed without any ticket money coming in. How would that change the way you do business? I think that's a more
you would have to create an impact.
impactful way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove worth to all of those people who might give you money is the answer. You have to prove charitable worth. You have to be as on solid ground as a charitable or as a charity. You have to be impactful as a charity. That's who will donate to you. That's when people will donate to you. If you're going the other way, then why would anybody donate? You're just trying to make money on your own. Good. Let the people who go pay for it.
Yes, at that point it would not. Yes, absolutely. So do you think there is an inherent benefit to arts organizations being nonprofit if they are truly having an impact versus having a structure more similar to the Braves, where it was a for-profit organization also attempting to have some charitable impact, but not being a charity?
I honestly don't care which way, but just be true to yourself. So if you really don't want... No, honestly, I mean, there are organizations, and there's no moral high ground to being a nonprofit. There's no, I'm better than you because I'm a nonprofit. That doesn't exist. In fact, it's harder to be a nonprofit because nonprofits have to be great. Commercial organizations merely have to be. And 95% of the business, Jim Collins used to say this, 95% of the businesses in America are mediocre. Do you want your nonprofit to be mediocre? I don't think so. You want your nonprofit to be great because there are people in trouble.
Yes. I love it. Awesome. All right. Taking a sharp turn, for fun, can you speak a little bit about your experience on Jeopardy?
Well, as I mentioned, I won twice. And it was quite an experience. I auditioned like everybody else. I did the online audition thing. That there were 500,000 people who completed it that year? Wow. No, that doesn't seem right. That's too many. At least 100,000 people who completed it that year. They brought in Seattle, they had a separate audition group. And of that, they were, 2,000 people just in Seattle. And that was in person. And mostly that was a repeat of the online test just to prove that you didn't have somebody else take it for you. And then, so it may have been more than 2,000. 2,000 came because obviously if somebody did it for you, you didn't come.
Right.
So then they did that, and then they brought it down to 500 people, and nationally, and they sold the 500 people, and so it's like an audition thing, and you're still going. And I think they were looking just as much for personality as they were for people who were getting the right answer, because even though I got the right answers a lot in the audition stage, I made the people laugh a little bit too, so that helps. If you're completely dry and just dry, they might bring you on. I mean, there's no harm in that, but they're doing a television show right? That's what they do. So then they brought me they said, you're on, we'd like you to come out. I had to pay my own way to Los Angeles, pay my own hotel bill. So just in case you think that they treat you like gold. Once you're at the studio, they treat you very well. But no, you that's it. And then went to the show, and they said you'll be sometime this week. And this week means they film 5 episodes in a day. So sometime in those 5 days, there are 3 people every day, and one's a returning champion for the most part every day. So whatever number that works out to. And I started on a Thursday. and I beat a guy who had been there for 9 straight days. So that was a big deal.
Yes.
And then made him laugh along the way. And then the next day I won again, and never got a final Jeopardy right. And then the third day was the Monday after that. So I had to come back for that.
I see.
And then I lost in the last second on that one. It was I had a brain fart, if that's the technical jargon.
Yes.
And I had a 50-50 in my head and went with the other 50. So
See.
I was there for 3 days. I had a ball. I won a bit of money. I paid off my debts. People asked me, what are you going to do with your money? I said, well, I've pre-spent it. That's how I looked at it.
Yes. Very fun.
On things like life,
Yes, yes. So was it exhausting to film? I would assume. So if you filmed on Friday for the 2 that you won, was it exhausting to do them back to back, or was there time in between?
Oh, that's easier.
How did that work?
Honestly,
okay.
that's easier. So after the show is over, if you've won, they send you back to the green room where there's a dressing room, and you've already you have to bring with you several changes of clothes. Just in case you're lucky. So yes. I put on another set of clothes and go right back out. Once you're on, though, it's a lot easier, to be honest, than waiting. The waiting is harder.
I see.
And then the Monday part, so the next time they brought me back, they started filming. Remember, I didn't start until a Thursday of that week, which means I started with their 4th show of the day, which means I started after lunch, to be honest. Well, when you're the first show, that one starts at 8 a.m. And you have to be that smart at 8 a.m. I'm not. I had 7 cups of coffee. It wasn't enough. And if that show ever comes on to Buzzer or one of those game shows, you'll see, he did crummy for a while. And then all of a sudden I took the lead because I started to wake up. And then I lost it at the end.
Oh, yes. Yes. Was that when Alex Trebek was the host? When was this? Okay.
It was filmed about a month before he was diagnosed with his brain issue. And it went on the air. He was still alive and still broadcasting when it went on. And he was still working, but not for much longer after that. So it went on in February of 2018.
Okay.
February 22nd, 2018, if you want to look it up on YouTube. I'm sure it's somewhere.
My father, there's a joke in my family. My father loves Jeopardy so much. So when we were children, between 6 and 6:30 p.m., you did not interrupt the Jeopardy watching. It's a thing. And now if I try to call my father in that time period, there's a high probability he will not answer.
It's a good man. My son was the one who looked at my son, Danny, who's just a great kid at the age of, to me, he's a kid. He's 26. But at the time in 2018, or 2017 and 2016 and 2015, as we sit on the couch watching Jeopardy, he would hear me mumbling the answers under my breath before the contestant would say it. He said, "How do you know that?" And I don't know how I know this stuff. In fact, I'd love to erase it. Well, before you erase it, why don't you actually audition for the damn thing? And
I love it.
I did. So thank you to Danny Harrison. Wonderful kid.
I love it. That's great. Wonderful. All right. Well, I only have 2 questions left. I ask these to every guest. So my second to last question is
this like a James Lipton thing?
I don't know. Who's James Lipton?
Actor studio who always had that list of questions he asked every guest at the end of every episode.
I'll have to look into it. It might be.
Oh, never mind. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. What is one thing you are learning about right now?
I am learning that because I've started writing a semi with accent and italics and bold quotes, all that semi autobiographical novel fiction. And I'm learning that as I write these things, I start having dreams about the real events that occurred that are that inspire these stories, that are the catalyst for these stories. And I don't know whether I like that or not, but I'm learning that continuing to pry into one's own psyche is ultimately a positive thing. And it's not a thing that has an end to it. Continue to be curious, continue to be interested in what affects the way you do your day, and you'll be fine. The other thing I've learned from all of that is all work. I think we learned this during COVID. I don't know that anybody put it into these words. All work that exists on this planet, all of it is make work. It's something to do while we're here. We created a money system. We created a food system. We created all these things. It's just something to do while we're here. Now, some people are not in the lap of luxury as I feel I am, even though I'm in a small little apartment right now. But that I have an apartment and I can afford it.
Yeah.
And I have a roof over my head and I have meals to eat and I have, extra poundage to keep me going, even if I starve for 2 weeks. A lot of people don't have that. Mm-hmm. But what everyone can have, if they just stop for a second, is the idea that the work you do does not define who you are. Even though you may say, I'm the best salesman, I'm the best cook, I'm the best this, that, the other. All of that may be inspirational for you while you're doing that thing, but that doesn't define who you are. So while I've been an arts organization leader for years and years, that doesn't define me. That's just something that I happen to do and be. What defines me is how I feel about people. And people and love matters a hell of a lot more than getting that last prop for that last musical that you're putting together.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And then and this may have a very similar answer, I'm not sure, but what is one thing you wish you could teach everyone?
Oof. I wish I could teach everyone. It's similar, to be sure, because that's what I'd love to teach everyone is to stop and never say you're too busy. Never say you're overworked. Just don't be overworked. Don't be too busy, because life goes like that. And it's the Ferris Bueller thing, right? You don't want to, if you blink a couple times, you might miss it. And so go enjoy your life. And that includes your family and includes your people. And, go kiss your spouse. Go hug your kid. Go for a walk. Do something that has nothing to do with your business. For those in the arts business, I would ask them to do one thing. And that is to recognize that your organization is not the center of the universe. I know you think it is. And I know there are people who will tell you that it is. But it's just not. So as a test of that, walk 2 blocks away from your building, if you have a building, or if you have a venue at which you perform, and go 2 blocks from there, just to some random corner, and ask people if they've ever heard of your organization. You'll be shocked to discover that they haven't. And that's not anybody's fault. Your marketing people have been telling you that for years. The fault lies not within our stars, dear Brutus, but in ourselves. That's Shakespeare from Julius Caesar, but it's ourselves. We're the ones who make things matter. So make things matter. You're only on the planet once, as far as I know. Why spend so much time concerned about the minutia?
I love it. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, it's been my pleasure too, Eleanor. You're terrific. And I think dancers are, the dancing is the hardest of all of the, to me anyway, of all of the arts disciplines. the hardest to be successful at. It requires the most physical ardor, the most physical ability, and has the shortest performance span.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's also paid the least. So keep dancing for love and make it work for you.
I appreciate it. Yes, I will do it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bookish Ballerina Podcast. To learn more, follow at the.bookish.ballerina.podcast on Instagram. To support the Bookish Ballerina Podcast and all I'm doing with writing, buy us a book or become a member at www.buymeacoffee.com/the.bookish.ballerina. A huge thank you to Sam Soul for the beautiful new logo, and thank you to R. Keith Stewart for our beautiful new intro and outro music. To learn more about Sam, follow @_SJS_art on Instagram. Thank you again for listening to this episode. We hope you enjoyed it and that you will consider subscribing, following, leaving a rating or review, or liking this video or podcast on whichever platform you are listening. See you for the next episode.